I recently discovered a new stencil company and how adding glitter gels to blended backgrounds make gorgeous and easy glitzy cards. Hello and welcome to Karen's Creative Cards on YouTube. I am Karen Hashik and this is the card that inspired all the cards that I'm sharing in this video. I cased it from Mindy Eggen Designs and I have a link to her blog post and video in the description. I loved her cards so much that I had to buy the stencil and the Mermaid, Be a Mermaid die from Tailored Expressions. So this is the stencil she used. It's called Go With The Flow. And then she used the Be a Mermaid die. I also took a class from Taylor of Tailored Expressions and learned about her on a hinge dies that allow the mermaid tail to move. So see how this can move back and forth in the waves. I used the Mermazing is a die from Impression Obsession, and I also used the Glitz glitter gel from Gina and Therm in the white. So I loved her card so much I used her color scheme, and I used the idea of the sponging through the stencil in the different colors and then adding the, in her case she used a different brand, but I'm using the Glitz glitter gel, and I just love how that turned out. So after making that card, I moved on and made some more. I did want to mention that in all the cards that I'm using today, I am also using Tailored Expressions Simple Strips background stamp and the new Friendship stamp. And there's a matching die. So what you can do is stamp both sets or whatever you end up getting on white. This is what I do anyway. I stamp them on white and then I die cut them out. It's real easy with these boxes here to line them up. And I put them in a bag, and then whenever I'm making a card I have the sentiment strip all ready to go, and I like to sponge them to match the colors of the card that I'm making. I am also using Tailored Expressions new blending brushes. It has one for each color, and I am just loving them. And I've also attached her funny towel right to my bag, and I wipe off the sponge, the brushes when I'm done on there. Although if there's ink left, it's no big deal because this one is only used for blue, etc. Now I don't have room for the carousel that she sells in my space, but that's a really nice thing to have as well. All the rest of the cards that I'm going to share today are featuring stencils from a new stencil company I recently discovered called A Colorful Life Designs. They have a huge selection of unique stencils, and their prices and shipping costs are very reasonable. And I made my first card with the yoga tree stencil and the faded petals. So I first used my blending brushes and blended green onto the yoga tree stencil, and then I went back with green Glitz glitter gel and added that using this stencil a couple times, moving it so I have some pretty petaled backgrounds that are glittery. And I also used a sentiment strip from Tailored Expression, as I did on all my cards. All the rest of my cards were made with the layered mandala stencil set from A Colorful Life Designs. This one is my favorite of all the stencil sets that I've gotten so far, and it's the one that I'm going to show you how to use when I make a card. So you have layered mandala base, and then you have layered mandala top. And what I really like is that they have the name of the stencil as well as their website on each one. So I always look at that to make sure I have the top and the bottom. And we are using pixie spray from Thermoweb and iCraft to attach these, and I'm going to show you that. And that way the tackiness is only on the back, and I don't really care if I don't get that tackiness off because I'm going to reuse these and reuse them, and I'm using the pixie spray on every one. So I'm going to show you how to do that. All the stencils that I purchased are the 6x6 size, which is my favorite, but of course there are other sizes available. And the 6x6 is perfect for making a square card, and of course it fits right into the square envelopes that I have. So I just used the whole stencil here, and I used 2 colors of blue, and then I used that clear white Glitz glitter gel from Gina K and Thermoweb, and I made this gorgeous card. And like I said, on every one I'm using those sentiment strips, and that was the first card that I made. But of course it can easily be cut down to A2 size cards, which are my favorite to make. I have a little something on there that's bugging me. So I did this one in blues and purples, and I went over it again with that white Glitz glitter gel, and then I just cut it down to 4 by 5 1/4 and put it on a A2 size top folding card. And another sentiment strip from Tailored Expressions. And what I like to do with the excess, because you've cut some of it off, is to just punch or die cut some embellishments out of those same colors, that same glitter glitz, and add those to the card. I've done this also on this card. There are many colors of Glitz glitter gel, and I used the Wild Lilac on this one. So again, the blues and the purples and the sponging, not sponging, but the brushing of inks on. And then on the third layer, I moved the stencil over, and I'm going to show you how I did that, and got another layer, and this time with the purple on there. So I am loving how all of those turned out. I love the color combo of peach and aqua blue, and I use this to make this card that I'm going to show you step by step how to make. Now it is an A2 sized card, but I made a happy mistake. The first time I made this card, I was going to just score it 4 1/4, which is typical, but instead I scored it 4, and I thought, well, let's just leave it there. And then what I did was I put a strip of that Glitz stenciled piece on the inside, and it continues the pattern from the front to the inside, and I was kind of happy with how that turned out. So I'm going to repeat that on the card that I show you. And of course I have another Tailored Expressions sentiment strip, and I punched out some butterflies and added some of my favorite gems from Gina Marie Designs. So I have a piece of just scratch paper here. I don't really want to get any on my backing here. And I have a, I believe it's 5.5 by 5.5 piece here. And I'm going to take some temporary tape and tape it down on here. And then I have the first, the base layer of the stencil, and again I like to keep the words on the bottom so I always know exactly how to set this up. And I have my pixie spray in a box, and I turn it over, and for a while there I was just kind of holding it up and just spraying, but I found that I wasn't getting an even layer, and also the excess spray, which is sticky, was maybe going on my furniture, my carpeting, which I don't think that's a really good idea. So I am using a box and spraying it. And then I am going to stick it down on here, and that makes it stick pretty good. But just to be on the safe side, I also always use my purple tape and tape all 4 sides down. It just doesn't hurt, and that way we know it's going to stay down while we do either our Glitz glitter gel or our sponging. Now I have 2 colors of peach that I'm using today. The first layer is Bellini from Catherine Pooler, and then My Favorite Things Coral Crush. And I'm just saying that peaches and aquas are my favorite, one of my favorite color combination right now to do. So on the first layer, we are just going to take some ink in this color-coated brush and start along the sides. And I personally just like to do this, the outsides darker than the insides. It's just, and I really like it when you catch these lines here and you just get a line of color there, which is really pretty. And I always kind of start off of the image, like on here or on here, just in case there's going to be a blob. You know, occasionally there is, and it just makes sense to start off and just blend it. I find using these blending brushes much easier than the traditional blending tools. In my opinion, they were a great invention. And I like I said, the darker color, but I do want good color on the inside of the stencil as well. So I like to remove the tape and use the top one as a hinge and just lift this up while it's still in place and make sure that I like the amount of color, because if I didn't, I could just put it right down again and add some more. But in this case, I do. And then I'm going to take the darker of the 2 peaches, and then I am going to spray the back of this, the top stencil, in the layered Mandela set from A Colorful Life Designs. And of course, links to all the products I'm using will be in the description box. And so I line up the center first, and then I line up those other lines, and you can see how easy that is to do. And then I'm going to still put my purple tape on. And obviously that's reusable. I use it many times before I toss it. Okay. And then we're going to pick up some of the darker peach and add that first to the outside. And then to the inside. And then once again, using the hinge, we're going to see if we like, if that's enough for the dark and the light. I think I want a little more on the center. Some of this does get covered up by the aqua Glitz glitter gel. Okay, that's very pretty. And of course you could just leave that just as is. I mean, it's just really pretty already. But I think adding the Glitz glitter gel is really a nice step. Really jazzes it up, makes it glitzy and glittery, which is, of course, very beautiful. I'm just using my tidy towel to take the color off the top of that. If I was doing a thorough cleaning, I would throw it in a stencil bath, which I'm going to do after the next step. But for now, that would be enough cleaning. So now what I like to do is, I mean, you could put it right over the top and just add the clear white. But what I've been doing with this is moving it. And first you have to line up the center. And then if you kind of line the stencil up those points with the end on each one of the smaller petals, and it doesn't have to be exact, but you want the center to be exact. And then, oh, and you know what I was going to do? I was going to add a little more before I lined it up. It is still sticky, and if I were just using ink, I probably wouldn't need any more, but I don't want any of that Glitz glitter gel to go underneath there, because that can kind of ruin it. So I'm adding a little more of the Pixie spray before I do that. So now let's get the words on the front, and then get the center lined up, and then get those petals kind of lined up. You can see the smaller petal, and then the larger petal is coming out from each one of those. And then I'm going to press it down firmly. And I'm still going to tape it down. I wrote myself notes on this, and one of them says mask, and that just means I'm going to mask those corners, because if I don't, it's highly likely that you're going to get some of that Glitz glitter gel in places that you don't want it. So I'm just going to mask all four corners. Okay. And then I have the turquoise sea. Now, I've not had any issues with the Gina K Thermoweb Glitz Glitter Gel drying up. But that being said, I have had another brand did dry up on me after only using him once or twice. So to be on the safe side, I take a piece of press and seal, and I just seal it with that underneath the cover, and then I know for sure that that's going to stay nice and moist. So it's just something I do. Again, it's probably maybe not necessary, but it certainly isn't going to hurt. If this sits again now for a while, I want it to be soft and buttery like it is, and come out very nicely as it is right now. So that's just something I do. And so basically we're just going to lay the Glitz glitter gel down through all the openings in that second stencil of this set. You can pick up the excess and move that to areas that you haven't done yet. And after having picked up most of the excess, I'm going to move my masks. And then once again, using the hinge, take the tape off of 3 sides, and then pick this up with the third or the fourth piece on the top like a hinge. And I'm going to put this in a stencil bath right away. I created one off camera as well as this. You don't want that to sit too long or it will harden on the stencil. So there we have our piece of the 3 layers of that layered mandala set. It does take a little while to dry, but I'm going to say a couple hours. I made one this morning, and it was dry enough to work on just after lunch. So not wanting to wait for that to dry, here's the one that I completed before. other pieces here. I have cut this piece down to 3 3/4 by 5 1/4, and my strip is 3/8 by 5 1/4, and I'm going to attach that to the front of the card. My hand's glittery here. On the inside, I put a piece of 3 1/4 by 5 to write a personal message on. So I have put some two-sided tape on here. And we're going to put this right up to the edge so that would equal on 3 sides up to the edge. Let's see if that's pretty equal on the bottom. No, I say that's pretty good. Equal on the side. I mean, you know, lined up with the side and pretty equal on the top and the bottom. And then take the cover off the tape on that piece, and is that right? Yep, that's it. Okay, so we're going to line this up to just continue the pattern from the front to the inside. And then I really like when you open it how you have that glittery, beautiful floral on the inside as well as on the outside. I took the excess and punched some butterflies, which I like to do, and then I am going to, on the other cards that I made, I raised this, but on this one I decided to do it flat. So I need another piece of sticky tape on there. And when you're making these cards, you can decide whatever sentiment you want. There's such a variety between those 2 packs from Tailored Expressions, and also I hear she's coming out with some new ones, which is, you know, very exciting. So on this one I said, sending you a big hug, and on this one I'm saying, so grateful for you. And I sponged those with the Bellini peach ink to continue the color. And I'm going to use some glue dots to attach the butterflies. Sticking to my fingers. And this bigger one I'm going to put here. And I ended up with enough extra to punch 2 small butterflies on this one. So I think the colored one I'm going to put in the center here. And then we have an extra one, which I always like to use the number 3, of course, to put up here. And then I'll use my favorite gems from Gina Mindy Designs. I have the kind of aqua color that kind of matches this for this one. And then I think I'm going to use the peachy color on the other 2. So our A2 sized glitzy glittery card with stencil colors that ends up being so easy and so beautiful is complete. It says "So grateful for you" with some pretty butterflies, and then you open it and you have that extra strip of color there. I love how these stenciled color brushed glitzy cards turned out, and hope they have inspired you to try these stencils and products in your card making. Thanks for watching, sharing, and subscribing, and for helping me share the joy of creativity.